Okay, so this is our meiosis lecture, part 2. And this is where we left off yesterday, right? Talking about...
on diploids.
Oh, we're back farther?
We're up.
Up farther? So we talked about somatic cells, what the difference is between a somatic cell and a gamete. So somatic cells being all the cells in your body. Every cell in your body, except for a sex cell, which is an egg cell and a sperm cell, is a somatic cell. Okay, so we ended here then. Diploid cells? All right. And diploid cells. Diploid. Di means two. Di means two. And so, diploid, ploidy, refers to the number of chromosomes that you have. So in a diploid cell, you have a double number of chromosomes. You have a full set of chromosomes. You have two sets. Two sets of chromosomes. Where did you get your chromosomes from?
Parents.
From your parents. You got one set from mom and the other set from dad. Go way, way back before you were you. Where did you come from? Well, you came from a sperm with 23 chromosomes from dad, which fertilized a very large egg, which only had 23 chromosomes. And how many chromosomes did that result in? 46. And that's you. So you got half of your DNA from mom, half from dad. And then this one cell grew into you. How? How did it grow into being you? By dividing. By going through what process? Mitosis. So then this cell and becomes you. And now you're trillions of cells. So today our goal is to talk about the process that gave us the eggs and the sperm. How did we reduce our number of chromosomes? And are all eggs and sperm identical? Is every egg that you produce, ladies, going to be genetically identical? It comes from you. Well, why? Why is it not going to be genetically identical? Every egg in your ovaries, it came from you. Why isn't it going to be genetically identical to the other egg? And of the millions and millions of sperm that the male and a male makes every day, they all come from you. Are they genetically identical? No. So we need to talk about the why. How is it that if you have 2 kids or 10 kids, that they're not all genetically the same, even though they came from the same two people? Is anybody at all intrigued by that? Do you have brothers and sisters? Yeah. Are you exactly the same as they are?
We look the same as they look like.
Maybe look the same as babies, but as you start growing, you start to see the differences. And it can be very, very big differences. If you look at my sister, if she walked in this room right now, you would not even know that we were related. She's 6 feet tall, completely different body style, looks nothing like me, has blue eyes, I have green. She has a different skin tone. She tans beautifully. I just turn red and get all freckly. I mean, we just very, very, very different, even though we had the exact same 2 parents. So we need to figure that out. How can that happen that same 2 parents don't produce identical offspring every time? Okay. Somatic cells. These are our body cells. All somatic cells are diploid, but our sex cells are haploid. So you know a little bit of algebra, right? You know what variables are. We use N to represent the number of chromosomes. So in humans, our 2N number is 46. Okay. So what would our N value be?
23.
N is equal to 23. Okay? Your 23 times 2 is 46.
don't get 46 chromosomes?
Well, that's a chromosomal defect if you don't get 46 chromosomes. And most of the time, the embryo would not survive. It would, the woman would have a spontaneous abortion or miscarriage before she ever even knew she was pregnant.
Oh,
Okay? Because if you don't have the correct number of chromosomes, then the chromosome pairs don't line up properly. So you can't develop. But there are a few chromosomal abnormalities that, you do, like Down syndrome, right? You have an extra chromosome in Down syndrome. And you guys all know exactly what Down syndrome looks like. That's one of those that's really publicized. We all know what Down syndrome is? No? What someone looks like with Down syndrome?
Nope.
No? Okay, I'll find you a picture. There have been actors and actresses with Down syndrome, but varying degrees of mental development issues. Okay, so children with Down syndrome can be very, very mentally delayed or extremely advanced and intellectually okay. Physically, people with Down syndrome, and we have students on this campus who have Down syndrome, and they go to our special school that we have here for students with severe handicaps. So shorter in stature, so shorter. A lot of times they call it webbing on the neck. The neck will be wider. The eye shape is shaped like an almond. It's more almond-shaped eyes. Large tongues. There's all kinds of genetic defects. And then internal things. That can be heart problems and digestive tract issues. But the thing that unifies pretty much almost all children with Down syndrome is that they are incredibly loving, cheerful, sweet people. It's kind of amazing, they have everything in the world against them, and a lot of times they are just amazing people, and families, parents of children with Down syndrome are often very much like they feel so blessed to have had that child, because the child brings so much into their lives. Okay, so that's a chromosomal issue that you can survive with, but most of them you don't. There are other ones that are way, way worse. Trisomy 18, trisomy 13, and usually the children don't survive very long, and severe, severe problems. So that number of having that right set of chromosomes is really important. So today we need to talk about why you have to reduce your number of chromosomes and why that's important for this process of fertilization. Because baby needs to get 46. And that 23 number from mom is really important, and that 23 number from dad is really important. So, got a lot of ground to cover. Okay, so di means 2. This is what we're talking about. That diploid number is important. No, a lot of you guys are sick out there, kind of like I am. I see droopy eyes and tired faces, and I feel for you. Okay, stay home if you can. If I'm recording my lectures, you can do it at home. Okay. But, I'm sick because one of you infected me. And I'm here now so I can infect someone else. Actually, though, really, it's harder for me to be gone than to be here. So, all right. So, haploid. Haploid is going to be what the situation when we cut our chromosome number in half. And we find this in our gametes. And I want you to think of the word half when you think of haploid. Think of half. So all of our gametes are going to be haploid. And in humans, the haploid number is 23. And we're going to use just the N to represent that haploid number. So if I tell you that for example, in some organism maybe is 12, if the haploid number of an organism maybe is 12, what would the diploid number be? 24. Easy, right? If I told you that the diploid number was 44, then the haploid number would be 22. So what this means is if you cultured body cells and you counted chromosomes in body cells and there were 44 chromosomes in the body cells, you would know that the sex cells of that organism would have to have 22 chromosomes. Okay? Good with that? All right. Today, I want to make sure that you really have a good understanding of the difference between mitosis and meiosis and why our sex cells produced in meiosis don't look identical. So, in mitosis, we have a process that's happening just in the somatic cells. And let's count our chromosomes in these cells here. We start off with a cell, and how many chromosomes are in this first cell? Two. How many chromosomes are here?
4.
2. Now, why do we say it's just 2?
Because you count them by the centromere.
Yes, we only count them by those little centromeres, that pinched in area. Do you all see that? Why there's only 2? In this cell here, how many chromosomes do we have? 2. Do you see that? It's 2. Now, in this cell, and there's still just one cell here. How many chromosomes? 4. Good. And then in this, each of these last cells? 2. So in this situation, we started off with a 2 in number of, what's the 2 in number?
40, no,
2.
23.
No, in this cell here,
Oh.
on the slide.
Oh, 2.
It's 2, right? And we ended up with cells that are 2 in here. They have 2 chromosomes. So if this cell were to go through meiosis, how many chromosomes would you expect it to have?
2.
Well, 2 times what equals 2? 1. So the end value of this cell has to be 1. So if this cell that I'm showing you up there, if it went through meiosis, it would be as if this cell split again and you only gave 1 chromosome to each daughter cell. Come on. It's frozen. There we go. Let's count our chromosomes again. What's our chromosome number here? What's our chromosome number here?
2.
Chromosome number here? Chromosome number in each of these cells? 1. There's only 1 centromere there. Do you see that? So what did we just do to our chromosome number? You cut it in half. What's our chromosome number here? 1. And what's our chromosome number in each of these cells? 1. So in meiosis, we went from a 2 in cell to an N cell. We went from a diploid cell to a, let me hear it. What kind of cell is the end? Haploid. Here, we started with a diploid cell and we ended with a diploid cell. In meiosis, we start with a diploid cell and we end with a haploid cell. Okay? So from this slide, do you all know how to count chromosomes?
Yes.
Okay? And are we solid with the understanding of diploid and haploid? Now, for our purposes here, we are not going to learn the step-by-step what happens at each stage of meiosis. That's not the important part. We've just covered the first important thing in meiosis is that we understand that our chromosome number is cut in half. Okay? The other important thing that we need to make sure that we learn is, why do we not look exactly the same as our brothers and sisters? Okay? So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is going to be on the second page of the lecture outline, which I'm going to hand out to you right now. Okay, so I just passed out the second page. This is for our listeners at home. I wanted to be able to say that. So I just passed out the second page of the lecture outline. This is going to be attached to Google Classroom in case you misplace yours. Hopefully you're more organized than that. This page 2 of our lecture outline, from this point on, this you will attach onto your next right-hand page, which is page 18. So the handout that we've been working on goes on page 16, a right-hand page. That's part 1. This is part 2. And your homework for tonight is to write good, higher-level questions about the content, and then put a summary for each page. So that you're going to turn these, this is the body of the notes. The outline becomes the body of the notes, and you're going to turn them into Cornell notes, Cornell format, okay? All right, so we're going to start with the top of the next page. And, oh, this thing is very laggy, my screen. Okay, so meiosis, cell division of, meiosis is the cell division of, God, this thing is so laggy. Sorry. It's the cell division of gametes. So the process of meiosis results in the formation of gametes. What happens to the number of chromosomes is the chromosome number is cut in half. Bless you. This process of meiosis, who does it? Well, any organism that has to be able to exchange genetic information during reproduction. So any organism that participates in sexual reproduction, which means the exchange of genetic information, half from mom and half from dad. What do you start with? You start with something called a germ cell, which has 46 chromosomes. And you're going to end with 4 gametes that each have 23 chromosomes. So what is that term that we use to represent 46 chromosomes in humans? 2N. Okay, 2N, that's the symbol, and it's called diploid. And for some reason, so diploid, there's our term. And if you end up with a cell that has only 23 chromosomes, what's that going to be referred to? It's going to be symbolized by N, and that's going to be called a haploid cell. And how many gametes are going to be produced? 4. Now that's part of the answer to number 13 on the reading guide. But the reading guide worksheet asks specifically about males and females. So we're going to learn that there's a difference. In mitosis, how many cells were produced? You produce 2 cells, and what can you tell me about the chromosome number in those 2 cells?
Stays the same.
It stays the same. So if you start out with a diploid cell and you end up with 2 diploid cells. In meiosis, I like symbols for things, right? I like to make it visual. And it's actually, this is really wrong the way I wrote this. In meiosis, you end up with 4 cells that are haploid. I like the little circles because it gives you a visual. How many of you wrote down the little circles? I think I've written these before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of cells go through mitosis?
Somatic.
All your body cells,
Besides sex.
with the exception of sex cells or gametes. Those are the only ones that go through meiosis. All right. Those are the famous Duggar family. That's a famous Duggar family. The Duggars. You've heard of them?
No.
19 Kids and Counting. They had a show on the Learning Channel.
Where are the parents?
Okay? The parents,
Right there with them.
the parents, there's the dad,
Oh.
there's the mom. They actually even have more kids. This is their son and his wife, but so she's not from this family, okay? And several of them now are married. She's married. I think she's married now. She's not married. I think he's married. And they're all older, so I think some of the younger kids have girlfriends now, and they're really
Why do
serious.
they have some-
Why do they have so many? Well, for them, it's a religious choice. They're very, very religious, and they don't do anything to stop pregnancy from happening. And they got married very, very young, and she's very fecund, which means fertile. And she's just had one child after another. And they had one child, I know, that died. She had a miscarriage. And I think they've had at least two, probably one or two more since then. So we're not going to comment on, why they're fat. That's not why I'm showing you this picture. Why I'm showing you this picture is, are all those children identical? No. Yet, they can't have exactly the same two parents. Now, is there some family resemblance? Yeah. Okay. But this brings me to the question of, you have brothers and sisters, probably. And they probably have the same two parents, maybe. And are you identical to your brothers and sisters? Why, no, you're not. You might have family resemblances, but are you genetically identical? Unless you're an identical twin, you are not genetically identical. So how does that happen? How do we have the same two parents and we get unidentical twins? Oh, I hear it.
Well, the sperm and egg
I don't know how to word it, but like I know.
Okay, explain it in your own words.
Like, I don't know. I guess.
Something about the chromosomes, yeah.
They're arranged differently?
Okay, they're arranged differently.
And isn't there a different sperm and egg cell? So that
Say that again.
there's a different sperm and egg cell for everyone.
Okay, so yeah, you didn't all come from the same sperm and egg cell, but the same sperm and egg cell were made from. My screen is frozen, so it's just black right now, and I'm just talking over a black screen. But this is good what we're talking about. So, you came from a different sperm and egg cell than your brothers and sisters, right? But those sperm and egg cells were made by the same parents. Did they carry the same DNA?
Well, we have two sets of chromosomes, right? So it could be like different sets of chromosomes.
Didn't you read about anything about why sperm and egg cells are different? My screen is completely frozen. Does the term crossing over?
Yes. I have that in my notes.
You have that in your notes. Okay. What is that all about?
It says on the reading guide.
What? When heterozygous pairs exchange portions of their chromosomes. So, why do we have to do this process of meiosis? Meiosis is important because we have to reduce our number of chromosomes. Otherwise, we run into all the kinds of problems that we've been talking about with having an incorrect number of chromosomes in the zygote. So this word, you need to make sure you know what this word means. Zygote. Okay? A zygote is so here we talk a lot about humans, but animals, fish, and other things do this too, where we have gametes produced, eggs and sperm. Okay, and they have had the numbers of chromosomes reduced in half. and then they fertilize, and you get your zygote, which then develops into your juvenile fish, and it grows through the process of mitosis. Otherwise, we end up with the incorrect number of chromosomes. Yeah. And it's freezing again. I love it. Okay. So the chromosome number of the egg and the sperm has to be cut in half so that the zygote has the correct number of chromosomes. Man. Did I skip a slide?
I think. Go back one.
Okay. This is lagging between what I'm seeing on the screen, so there we go. We already did this, right?
No.
But with this information, look at this information. Don't you already have this? Meiosis is the process of creating a gamete, a sex cell. It's very similar to mitosis, but the end result is different. You end up with 4 non-identical cells. And we still haven't talked about how we get 4 non-identical cells that are haploid. We talked about how we get the haploid number. I think you guys all understand that you reduce your number of chromosomes.
So the chromosomes, the matching sets are the haploids, right?
Those are called homologous pairs. Homologous pairs. Haploid refers to the total number of chromosomes that you have. What I'm concerned about is how do you get non-identical cells? Which means that each of these sperm or eggs that are produced are not genetically the same. And that's where that whole crossing over thing comes in. That there is some process that occurs that gives us non-identical sex cells. Okay? So that's what we're going to be looking at in the next slides, okay? This is why you don't look identical to your brothers and sisters, even though you have the same 2 parents. And this is why sexual reproduction is so much better than asexual reproduction, because we don't want everybody to look exactly the same. That actually results in weaknesses in a species. The other day I mentioned that all banana plants are clones of each other, and they're worried about a fungus coming in and a disease on the banana plants. It's going to wipe them all out. So they're trying to introduce genetic diversity into bananas so that they have different strengths and weaknesses. I remember when my sister came home from college one weekend, and she had a rash, and she ran a little fever, and she felt kind of achy over the weekend. My mom took her to the doctor, and he says, it's just a virus that causes a rash. You know, she'll just tell her to take it easy. She was seriously sick for 4 days. She was fine. 3 weeks later, I developed this rash of like blisters, really high fever, super sick, full-blown chicken pox. I got it from my sister. My sister had chicken pox. And the doctor didn't even recognize it as chicken pox because she really wasn't sick. Me, 3 weeks. Sicker than a dog. Rash all over my body, inside my mouth, everything. Okay? Yeah, because when you get chicken pox, you get it on the insides of your body too.
Chickenpox now? That's not a good.
Yes, people still get chicken pox now. So, the older you are when you get chicken pox, the worse it is. So, why did my sister hardly get sick at all and I got so sick? Genetic variation. My immune system didn't recognize it as a threat quickly enough, and so it got me really, really sick. Whereas body recognized it right away, attacked it. Same thing with my dad. My dad, all his brothers came from a family of 10. All his brothers and sisters had chicken pox. He doesn't ever, his mom didn't remember him ever having chicken pox. Probably because he had just a very, very mild case and really wasn't sick at all. Genetic variation is good. How do we get genetic variation? Through this process of crossing over. Okay? So, first of all, we need to understand what a homologous chromosome is. Okay? Homologous chromosomes are pairs of chromosomes that are identical. So like here's a pair, and here's a pair, here's a pair. And so you have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes. And this is something called a karyotype, where they take a picture of all your homologous pairs of chromosomes. During meiosis, those homologous pairs of chromosomes pair up. Okay? The homologous pairs combine. Okay? They're pair. And you have 4 chromatids total. Where did those pairs of homologous chromosomes come from? Well, you had 1 pair from your dad and 1 pair from your mom. But those are identical. Those chromatids are identical. So you don't forget, what is a chromatid? So here, okay, there's a chromosome. And when it makes its copy, there's its copy. So here's 1 chromatid. There's the other chromatid. So that's 1 chromosome. The other identical chromosome, okay, now I'm showing a pair of homologous chromosomes. And these 2 attach together. And so if it was all clustered together, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4 chromatids. You see that? And that's why we use the word tetrad, because tetra means 4. Yes?
Is there a certain number for those that we're supposed to have?
How many chromosomes do you have? 46.
About homologous.
Okay. You have 46 chromosomes. How many pairs would that be? 23.
So there's every chromosome has its homologous pair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all your chromosomes come in pairs, okay? And before meiosis or mitosis, it would just be the 1 chromosome. It wouldn't have copied itself. So it would just be 1 strand like that. So you'd have 2 red ones, 2 blue ones, 2 green ones, okay? But before the cell can divide, it has to copy those, and that's why we get that little X. And again, waiting for the screen. Waiting, waiting, waiting. You see it, but what I get is a black screen. And it says waiting for screen. Waiting for screen. And this is so frustrating. So now I'll walk to my computer and see if I can. Okay, good. So down there, the little pink and the green. How many pairs of homologous chromosomes do you see there? 2 pairs. How many chromatids do you see there? 4. Okay. So this is a pair, and this is a pair. Now, if they were all pink, then they'd be homologous, but these aren't homologous. So let's talk about crossing over. All right, so we see a pair of homologous chromosomes up there. And you got the red one from mom and the green one from dad originally. And during meiosis, they're going to form a tetrad. And when they form that tetrad, look at what happens. The legs get tangled. And when they separate back out again during meiosis, a chunk got left. Look at the colors. So now, when they separate at the end of meiosis, and this separates all the way out, I'm so frustrated with my screen right now. Really? Oh, I just have to give up on this recording. I'm so sorry for those of you trying to watch this at home. Because this is so frustrating, but I've got to be able to draw this for you guys.
What if it said that on screen up there?
Okay? So when these divide at the end of meiosis, this is going to go to one sex cell, and this is going to go to the other. And this is going to go to one sex cell, and this is going to go to the other one. Do you see now that each of those chromatids are not identical? Because of this process of crossing over, where chunks get moved around, you have a slightly different version of what originally came from your parents. And so when you produce 4 gametes, each gamete is going to be slightly different. If we didn't have crossing over, they'd all be the same. Because one would get a green, 2 of them would get the green, and 2 of them would get the red, and no mixing up. So this is why you can have maybe eyes the same color as your dad and your grandpa, but curly hair like what you have on your mom's side. My sister looks like my dad, but she's got the hands like my mom. I've got hands and feet like my dad, but I look like my mom. I'm built body-wise like my dad's side of the family. My sister's tall like on my mom's side of the family. I got the butt on my dad's side of the family. Okay, all my uncles, they say, oh, you got the Brunt's butt. And I go, yes, I did. Okay, I look like a Zitterkoff. My sister looks more like my mom's side of the family. Okay.
Wait, you kept your last name?
Yes, I kept my maiden name.
Wow.
Yes. When I'm a wife, I'm Mrs. Williams.
Wow, that's different.
Oh, you don't look like a Mrs. Williams.
I don't look like a Mrs. Williams. I don't feel like a Mrs. Williams. I mean, whatever that's supposed to feel like. Okay. Okay. How many egg cells do we form? This is getting back to question number 13 on the worksheet. How many egg cells do we get? We only get 1 egg and 3 polar bodies. Basically, they're just a dumping ground for chromosomes. In a female, you do not finish going through meiosis until the egg gets fertilized. And then you go, uh-oh, I got too many chromosomes here, so it finishes its division, and you dump those extra chromosomes, and those are your 3 polar bodies. So 1 egg, 3 polar bodies. That's part of question number 3, or 13, right? The second question is in sperm cells, you get 4 sperm. So guys, you win the competition when it comes to making gametes. Okay? You make millions of them every day from the time you go through puberty until you die. Ladies, in our ovaries, we're born with immature egg follicles, egg cells, immature egg cells. And we have I think it's 300,000. And of those 300,000, you only ovulate about between 300 and 400 during our reproductive lifetime, which is from when we start menstruating until menopause, when you stop menstruating. So, we make far, far fewer. Why? Because we keep our eggs inside of us, and fertilization happens inside of the human female body, and our eggs are kept safe. Whereas males, those sperm cells go on a very, very torturous, dangerous journey to get to the egg, and most of them never even come close. Most of them die before they ever even get to the fallopian tubes inside of the uterus, at the top of the uterus. They don't even make it. So you need a whole lot, because most of them aren't even going to, I mean, that's not even mentioning the ones that are all messed up to begin with. Okay, we are not going to go into all the details about the phases. It's in the PowerPoint, but we don't need to get into all that detail. Okay? What I just want you to know is how many cells you get at the end, that they're, how many for a female? 1. How many for a male? 4. And what can you tell me about their chromosome number?
I think it's 23.
They're haploid. Okay. And? Okay. And are they all genetically identical? No, because of what process? Crossing over. All right. So that took a lot longer than it should have because of all of our technical issues. So tonight your homework is to take those outlines, turn them into proper Cornell notes, write summaries, and I'll be checking for that tomorrow, okay?